Did you know that you are always being bombarded with signals to sway you to think one way or the other? Well, I want to talk about freedom being a state of mind.
She's an enchantress, destiny's tree. Fear and doubt, she sets them free. Inner light guides the way, every night and every day.
If you're new here, my name is Celia, and I show up here every Tuesday with a mini masterclass. And how I come up with these topics is I channel every morning while I'm journaling, and my guides share a topic that they would like me to discuss. And this mini masterclass is about your state of mind and freedom. So we talked about how you can create your avatar and also know what your soul's journey in the last video. If you haven't watched it, I'm going to go ahead and put it right here so you can watch this video and get a better idea of why you're even here, what you chose to experience in this lifetime. Now, the reason why this is so important that we discuss this is because we are moving into a different timeline, okay? And you feel the transformation. You know it just from seeing what is being exposed in the world. And that's kind of Pluto's work. Pluto will destroy things, break them down, bring them out of the shadows so they can be healed. And so that is what we're experiencing on a global level, okay? And this is not to put us in a state of following the masses again. So if you're here, you've probably have gone through a spiritual awakening. And this discomfort is coming up because we're watching everything fall apart. And so you might be asking yourself, where do I start from here? And that's why my guides wanted me to create the last video so that you can get an idea of who you are. Now, we have been in the Piscean age, and let me just briefly talk about the ages. So ages go backwards, and they happen every 2,160 years. And so we were in the Piscean age, and that is the house. If you did your chart and did everything that I showed you in the last video, you're more familiar with the houses. So you know that the 12th house is about spirituality, and it's also about different systems like the hospital system. It's also about secrets. And so it is also where religion was birthed. So we've been under this illusion for 2,106 years. Well, not us personally, because we're not that old, but we are now moving into the Aquarian age. Some people say we're already in there. Some people say that we're moving in. But the one thing I know for sure is that Pluto is moving into Aquarius and is going to be stationed there for the next like 20 years, if I'm correct. But it's going to be there for a very long time. And Pluto's energy is transformative energy. And so we're moving out of this Piscean age and we're transforming into a time of humanity being instead of this hierarchy, we're going to be on one playing field, and we're going to be working together in community. So all of these hierarchy systems have to fall apart so that we can connect and come back together as one. Now, the theme is going to be individualization, and that doesn't mean separateness. It is understanding that you are unique. You are a star, okay? You're just as unique as a snowflake. And this means that there are things about you that aren't like anybody else. And so because you're unique, you're the unicorn, things you can't get lumped into one group. You're not somebody that just gets put in a box and you're like, okay, this is this group and this is how we're dealing with this group. It does not work. So we're moving into a time of individualization because technology is advancing. And because technology is advancing, it means that our healthcare is going to be more individualized. The way that students are being taught are going to be more individualized. The way that you eat and take care of your health is going to be more individualized. It is according to your genetic makeup and how you are as far as your essence. Okay, it's all going to be you're going to feel like you are royalty because of the way that you are going to be treating yourself. And that's why there was this heavy downpour or uppour about self love and finding your authenticity. And that is why I created the last video, because if you're not sure what your authenticity is, it helps to have a little bit of a blueprint to see if you resonate with what's in your chart, and are you letting your trauma lead you. And speaking of trauma, we have the opportunity. So, trauma is stored in your subconscious mind. And that is the lens in which you look at your life. So if you take a check and you take time to check out your surroundings, your reality, you can start to put the puzzle pieces together of how you've been living your life through the lens of your trauma. But the beauty of it is that we can always change our point of view. So when we decide to change our point of view, it's going to get uncomfortable because we've been so used to looking at our lives from a certain way. But it is through the repetition of staying with that point of view that our reality begins to change and our beliefs begin to change because we're changing our perspective. So we're moving into this more individualization area in the stars as far as moving into the age of Aquarius, but it's also to help us to adapt to our personality. Now, I also want you to remember that you're different. And along with that, we are also going to experience egalitarianism, which means that nobody gets left behind. We aren't going to leave our fellow brother and sister behind. We are coming together as one. We are going to be more aware when there's a sense of need. We aren't going to be like robots, machines, just thinking about where we need to go, what success ladder we need to climb. Our life's too busy. We've got our kids, doing this and that, and I just don't have time. But because of technology, we are going to feel like we have more time. And because we have more time, we're going to be more aware of what's going on. And so if you see somebody in need of a minute of your time, you're not going to be so hyper focused on me, because that was Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn was all about me, and we're moving into we. So it's really about getting to know thyself. Okay. And this doesn't mean that you're being selfish. This means you are ready to fill your cup up, because we all know that if you're trying to give from an empty cup, then you build up resentment. You're doing things not from love. You're doing it out of obligation. And because it's out of obligation, you're like not resonating with it. We're also going to see a huge uprise in entrepreneurship. And that is because everyone is going to know why they're here, their soul's journey, their creative expression, and they're going to bring it out into the world. And you've heard me mention this before, that technology is allowing us to advance because of having platforms like YouTube and being able to express ourselves and get the message out. There's also going to be a lot of individuality coaches. And that means that because it's hard for us to separate from our emotions and see ourselves, it's like we're walking around. I've said this before. I know Joe Dispenza used this as um, a metaphor, that we're in a glass jar walking around with all these labels and everybody else can read them, but we don't know, because we're just operating from our thinking and our emotions through our trauma and through our perspective. So let's just talk about um, symbology when it comes to freedom. And being that we are going through an election right now, so we have the symbology of the elephant and we have the symbology of a donkey. And an elephant, its symbology is wisdom, power, strength, and loyalty. It is about power to overcome. Okay. And then the donkey's symbology is about service, suffering, humility, peace, meekness, vulnerability, and victim. Okay. So when you think of that symbology, what do you think about um, and I don't want this to be political, but I just want you to be hyper aware of how you're being programmed through symbology. So when you see the elephant, it's like strength and empowerment. And when you see the donkey, it's about the weak and the vulnerable. Okay. So when you think of those two parties, you understand what their message is, who they're going after. Okay. And then let's think about the color red. Red is about power and aggression, and it's also about dominance, where blue is about serenity, stability, inspiration, and freedom, and being very sympathetic. So, when you think of the colors and what they stand for, if you are coming from your point of view, your perception, your trauma, the way that you see your life, you're going to be swayed either way to where you're going to want somebody to lead you. But remember, we are creating our own freedom. We are sovereign beings. And so we aren't looking for somebody to save us. That is what we need to remember, how powerful we are. So we are not looking for that. Yes, these officials, these government officials, they have to be in place because that's the structure, but it's not working and it hasn't worked for a long time. And without sounding real conspiracy, there's a lot more that's happening that is coming to the forefront. And if you're watching this, you probably know what those things are. And so that's where the falling apart of them is, so that we can build back together and have more community. So, let's just talk about the stars in the flag. So I'm talking about the uh, patriarch of the red, white, and blue, and the stars of the flag. So the stars represent, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because we know that stars represent consciousness, that we are stars, we have a starring role. And so we really resonate to the symbology of a star. And the stars represent the 50 states, okay? And stars, the symbology behind stars is destiny, fate, spirituality, motivation, protection, guidance, hope, renewal, heaven, and freedom and eternity. And then there's spiritual stars, and spiritual stars are virtuous souls. They're close to God, who spread light in the world to others who are enveloped in the darkness of sorrow and suffering. So when you think of how it's all been made up in the symbology, it's like, what is the message that you're being um, swayed without even knowing? Okay, because it's just the symbology of it, and even though you're not aware of it, they have an energy behind it. And the eight-pointed star I mentioned before is, it represents Venus, and it is the planet of love, okay? And I mentioned how goddess Ishtar came to me as the eight-pointed star. Now, the spiritual meaning for a star is divine presence and guidance and messages from the spiritual realm. Appearance of a new star can be interpreted as a celestial event of transformation, awakening, or an announcement of an important spiritual shift. So when you think of that, the spiritual meaning of the star, and the 11th house is ruled by the star card, okay, for Aquarius, and you're here to play your starring role. Can you kind of see how everything is just divinely being put together like one great puzzle? And when I think of state, okay, um, because of the 50 stars on the flag represent the states. Um, so I wanted to look at the etymology of the word state. And it begins in the Latin word status. And status means condition or circumstances. Status is a Latin word for stare, or star. It's STARE, to stand and to remain. State is a sovereign, self governing political unit that has centralized power over many groups within its territory. So that kind of is counterintuitive when you think of being sovereign and then you have the state that is controlling you, controlling certain groups, right? But then when I talk about freedom, because Aquarius energy is freedom. That is, if you are an Aquarius, you understand that more than anything, that is one of your authentic codes. You want financial freedom, you want creative freedom, you don't want authority to tell you who you can be and why you're here to express yourself. So this is all about stepping into freedom of being your authentic creative self. And even the money energy is changing. And you've heard me talk about how we manifest money. But if you are like me, I'm just going to share this with you. I have had so much resistance around attracting money. And what my guides are showing me is it is because it is changing right now, because the energy of the paper money, the fiat, has been so toxic that it's changing. So I just need to be patient. And so I'm still going to show up and serve and do as I have in my placement of my chart, and to follow my inner guidance and my intuitive voice, and what my guides want me to share with you. And this is coming from service, and it's coming from love, and also it's my authentic voice. So I feel fully aligned, okay? And even that brings you a sense of wealth and abundance when you feel fully aligned to your path and your expression. It's not always monetary. So let's just talk about the state of mind. And it is a person's mental and emotional state, or their mood at a given time. A person's cognitive state, or their quality of consciousness in relation to the outside world. So when you think of that, how you are navigating in the world and your emotion and your mental state is being, again, like I was saying, like symbology is kind of hijacking you and swaying you to believe one way or another. Well, when you're in your state of mind, that's where you pick up this perspective, right? It's a perspective of a way at looking at things, okay? So let's just talk a little bit about science. What hijacks your state of mind? It's your amygdala, okay? And how does your amygdala work? It reacts to anger, fear, anxiety, or extreme excitement, and that will hijack your amygdala by impairing your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates rational thoughts. Okay, so just think about how we have been manipulated through fear. And so when you're in a state of fear, you're very irrational in the things that you're doing because you are operating from fight or flight. Okay, so here's one thing I want to share with you as while we're talking about this. If you want to get back to center, do deep breathing. And the deep breathing is you inhale, count to 5, hold it, exhale through the mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you do that. Inhale, exhale. And what this does is while you're inhaling, you get a chemical of calmness, but when you exhale, you are getting toxins out of your body. And this gets you out of fight or flight. And I want to share that with you because you are always in control, and your nervous system is so powerful. So if you are feeling this anxious energy about what's going on in the world, remember, just through breath, you can change your state of mind. Now, the amygdala interprets images and sounds when it perceives danger. It instantly sends a distress signal to the hypothalamus. Okay. And the hypothalamus is part of the brain that regulates your bodily function, your hormone production, your temperature, your hunger, and even thirst, your sleep and wake cycle, your sex drive, your heart rate, your blood pressure. And the main function is to keep your body in a stable state called homeostasis. Okay. So if you're feeling this energy of anxiety and you're feeling all of this because of the state of the world, just keep in mind that there is symbolism happening all the time. And there are click words that we hear that can raise our blood pressure and put us into irrational thinking. And I even go back to whenever we have a hurricane, it's the way people act when they go into the store and how they buy up everything on the shelves. And there's this mass hysteria. And so we're so predictable as humans to do that. And so how we become more sovereign beings and we are in a state of freedom is through our state of mind. And breath is one of the ways that you can connect back to who you are and your essence, and to just slow things down. Now we are moving into not letting, panic happen. And if you use that exercise with breath, it will help you from getting into that kind of um, duress feeling. And it is time that you start pouring into yourself, start pouring into your cup so you are shining, okay? Because our star has been dull. We've been pushed down. We forgot who we are. We forgot that we're here to play a main role, that we're supposed to be the star in our starring role according to our birth chart, our uniqueness. We aren't here to compare and compete with anybody because everybody has their own soul's journey. And if you remember that if you're looking through a lens of pain and trauma and emotional irregulation, and it happens where, we're just starting to learn about all of this, and our parents have not, and there's still some people today that are learning about it. But when you are emotionally not adapt to be your healthy version and you raise a family, you're just creating this same legacy, this lineage of trauma. It just keeps going and going and going because you're not doing the inner work. You're not healing. And that's why it's so important that you take time for yourself and you go inwards and you start healing again, because we are moving into it, whether you are ready for it or not. We are moving into a time of individualization and egalitarianism. And so if you're not prepared and you're feeling like you're left behind, and there is no such thing as being left behind. But if you are still in this 3D dense energy and you're still in victim, so going back to how we have the elephant and the donkey. And when you think of this is not a political video because I just don't get into politics, but I'm talking about the symbology. When you think of a Democrat, who do they cater to? They cater to minorities because they know that minorities are suffering and they have this fear and lack because of everything. And not saying that they don't have a right to feel that way because of what they've experienced in their life. And they're playing up to that to get the vote. And then you have the aggressor who's ready to, climb the ladder and be great again. And that's going to attract that type of person, that type of personality. So we're always being fed symbolism and keywords that trigger something in us that make us sway us to do something that without thinking things through. And so we in this time we are here to prioritize our individuality. If you're wondering what is next, I've given you the step to really hone in to your authenticity, because you want to know what your soul's journey is. You are a star. When you understand the symbology with everything in the world is reading something back to you, is swaying you either way. And even with me, it's like I'm sharing my perspective because this is how the lens that I'm looking through, because I'm have like that detail oriented, heavy in my chart and the researcher. And so when my guides give me a project, to go down and do some research, I will do it and come back with some facts. And I want to put the pieces together that make sense. And so I have so many ahas in the process. And so it is prioritizing your freedom, your uniqueness, not looking for somebody to save you. We have been in that era since the Piscean age of looking for a savior. And when you understand that you're a star and that source energy resides in you and you have everything that you need, you will empower yourself and you won't let your power be taken away. So keep in mind that your nervous system is also being hijacked. So do the breath work, take pause, learn how to pause, learn how to use your discernment. Don't take my word for it. I'm sharing my perspective when I come on here with these mini master classes to hopefully give you some ahas and to understand that it is your state of mind that creates your reality, and be aware of how you're being swayed with either way, whatever way that you are deciding, and learn how to use your critical thinking and read between the lines. And so, since we are going into this where we have technology, technology is advancing us quickly. And there are ways that we get the message out to millions and millions of people. So, the powers that be that wanted to take control, They can't keep up with us anymore because we're communicating. We are talking about these things. We are understanding. We are beginning to remember. We are moving out of the state of fear and anxiety and depression. So that's why it's so important for you to pay attention to what you are consuming, whether it's what you're putting in your mouth, whether it's what you're using your eyes for or your ears. It is because everything is swaying one way or the other. And if you want to keep yourself in a state of homeostasis, and this homeostasis is where you feel calmness, where you feel like you are in control of your reality. You feel like you're at a state of peace and bliss, and you're able to do rational thinking. And so, this is the movement. This is the movement to become more individualized, to understand who you are, understand your authentic code, showing up more authentically, showing up as your highest version of yourself, being of service, knowing that we are coming together as one, that we are not on this planet alone, being more, using your critical thinking and your discernment. Because with technology, although it can help us advance, there are still some people in a lower vibration that are using it for deceit. Okay. So you do have to use your critical thinking. But we're going to rise above this and we're going to focus on how we want to express ourselves. We're creating. Pluto is coming into Aquarius. It's about transformation. We are transforming this reality into a reality that is more beautiful, more inspired with a lot of aspiration. And the core of it is it's not selfish to want to know about you. It is not selfish to follow your internal bliss. It is not selfish to put yourself first. It is not selfish if you are pouring into yourself so you have plenty of overflow of light that you can give to others. If you are giving from an empty cup, you are no good to anybody because you're in resentment. You are exhausted. There is nothing for you to light you up and to make you feel excited about why you are here. And don't get this twisted with achieving, okay? Because that is the old, like always, let's do, 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 do. No, it's about being and falling in love with you as a being, about who you are and your expression in the world. You are this star and you're building your stage, and now you know your starring role. And that is all I have for you today.
Destiny's tree, fear and doubt, she feels no shame.